Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this February full council meeting. If you could all make sure you've got your phones switched off, I would be mightily obliged. The toilets, should you need them, are to the rear of the foyer. We will break if we're taking too long. We'll have a break sometime after about an hour or so. We'll have to see where we are in the meeting. If you're here for the motions tonight, you may have quite a long sit. Right. Apologies for absence, please.
Received apologies from councillors Bailey, Fredericks, Housden, Mancini Boyle, Vickers and Penfold.
Thank you very much. No more. Good. We will go then on to the minutes. Has anybody got any problems with the minutes rather than going through them page by page, as we've got rather a lot to do? If somebody's picked something up, if not, would we have a proposer and seconder, please? The minutes. Right, thank you very much. Councillor Withington, Councillor Brown. Right, before we go on to item 3, Lucy, I believe you've got a presentation to make.
I have. Good evening, members. Tonight is not only special because we've got the budget, but we have a presentation to make to Officer Daniel King, who's our Deputy 151 officer. Officer King has completed and been awarded his level 7 qualification in strategic leadership, and he has worked on that within the last 12 months in addition to his normal day-to-day work. So I'd like to ask Officer King to come to the front, please, so I can present his certificate.
Well done indeed. And I was so keen to not forget the presentation. We didn't have an actual vote on the minutes, did we? I forgot them completely last time. So all those in favour? So that's unanimous. Right. We have an item of urgent business, which Councillor Adams speaking on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, first of all, we are pleased to have seen the announcement that elections for the County Council are back on. We don't feel they should have been cancelled in the first place. We set out our position in respect of this in writing to both the County Council and government previously. And we do have the capacity and capability to carry out the election, and of course, renewed efforts to make sure that all goes smoothly are occurring at this time. But turning to the announcements of the leader of the County Council yesterday, you will have seen that the County Council has indicated that the current administration will no longer be involved in local government reorganisation and devolution in Norfolk. So we wanted to bring this item to you so you have the opportunity to ask any questions and perhaps make any observations. I do think this is symptomatic of the government's fairly jumbled approach to these issues. We have certainly not had anything like a linear path set out before us here. And in fact, it's been truly chaotic at points. As things stand, the County Council cannot cancel local government reorganisation. That is the gift of the Secretary of State. However, the government need the County Council's consent to proceed with devolution. However, that could, of course, change if the government legislates to force it through regardless. Without the County Council's money, it would also be very difficult to make significant progress in local government reorganisation in terms of the significant costs that we have discussed previously, which are ahead of us, and factors such as agreeing consultancy. Of course, the landscape could change again in the weeks ahead with elections, and this means this space is particularly uncertain at this time. We have always been a reluctant, if not unwilling, passenger on the path to local government reorganisation. We are highly sceptical about the costs and have raised the opinion that the money and time would be better spent on public services before. We're also highly sceptical about the envisaged savings as these just have not materialised in or to the extent envisaged where this has been carried out before. And certainly we're also very concerned about the impacts of having a much larger authority that is more remote from our residents and businesses. And we're very concerned about how our role in the local economy in terms of the provision of discretionary services and amenities, like the pier, like Blue Flag beaches, like country parks, or public toilets and other spaces will continue to be provided and maintained for the benefit of our local economy and communities following local government reorganisation. But we have continued to be involved as it was the government's expectation and policy that this would happen. And we thought it best to be certainly in the room when this was being planned and discussed rather than done to without having had any input in it at all. So we certainly want to realise the investment in public services and the local economy through devolution. But the government have obviously made that increasingly difficult with the postponement or cancellation of the mayoral election. And I'm concerned, of course, that by May 2028, the devolution package could look entirely different from what was previously promised. Hopefully for better, but the skeptic says in me, perhaps worse. And for those of us that have banked on the benefits of arising from devolution, it has made supporting this work increasingly challenging. So where are we now? I think we've got to continue to make the budgetary provision for local government reorganisation, and that's obviously subject to your agreement this evening, the £750,000. The county council have done the same yesterday, and it would be a significant risk not to do so, to have to find that money later on. We can't bank on this changing things, and it's unlikely to do so, frankly. I personally feel the government should be paying that money rather than local councils, but yeah, if the money is not called upon, if it is no longer used for that purpose, we will put it to alternative uses, certainly, and inform the council and bring it back to council for discussion, because obviously that is a specific item on the budget this evening. Secondly, we will need to discuss with counterparts in the coming days over confirmation of our budgetary positions, the submission of a response to government on the statutory changes order questions that they have recently asked of us, and lastly, how we deal with the consultant procurement or strategic partner procurement, which we may not be able to proceed with imminently due to the county council's position, which of course has been supported by South Norfolk and Great Yarmouth councils. So we're largely in the hands of others, and perhaps the government has the next move here. Firstly, frankly, it's been a bit of a car crash, hasn't it, over the past few days, to say the least. And I'm concerned it's perhaps even a car crash on a level crossing, and the train might be on the way. So I feel the government could change the narrative quite considerably if they were to promise and commit to a convincing plan for devolution, perhaps enhancing the details, which if we would see an enhancement of the details and proposals and the monetary value of devolution, it would be important because we've always been slightly skeptical about that as well. We want to see real change for Norfolk, for North Norfolk, and we do not want to be in a position where we've spent more reorganising local government than we actually see in benefits in this district area, and that's been something that has worried me a number of times. We need to see the investment in areas such as public transport, and certainly as we've seen in events over the last few weeks with all of the work and dialogue that's been ongoing with businesses, and I'm sure John will say more about this during the meeting. There's so much strength that there's so much, will to increase the scale of business activity in the district and across the county. And I think we can really demonstrate that we can do a lot more. So wanted to bring this back. I'm obviously happy to take some questions briefly, should that be useful to you, and take on board any observations or concerns that members may have, which was my intention of putting this as an item of urgent business. But it is somewhat up to you in terms of how you use this time. So you would have seen the media coverage over the last couple of days. But in short, we are prepared for the elections. We feel we've got to maintain the original proposals in terms of the budgetary provision for LGR, and there'll be further dialogue between leaders in the coming days. I expect, subject to those agreeing to do so, in terms of what happens next. And who knows, we may see announcements from government in the meantime. Certainly been fast-moving week.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Members who wish to speak, could they show, please? Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I say thank you, Councillor Adams, for your summary, which I do agree with. Like you, I welcome the reinstatement of the elections. I don't think democracy should ever be cancelled. I do agree that what we've seen over the last few days on the subject from a shambolic government, and you cannot trust anything they say or any commitments they make. We need to remind ourselves that this taking part in the fast track plan for Norfolk and Suffolk was meant to deliver us millions and millions of pounds worth of money, which now seems to have disappeared entirely from the agenda. So given that actually there is very little support amongst any of the political parties other than the Labour Party across Norfolk and Suffolk, it does beg the question really that this is, if they do press ahead, then it's going to be very much imposed on us, probably against our collective will. And I've long articulated my views against that. I don't see any great benefit being delivered from LGR, or indeed I'm very sceptical about devolution as well. I think it prudent indeed that we put £750,000 aside in the budget for this, because we certainly don't know what will materialise over the coming months. But I guess my question is that we won't know, and I mean, obviously the county council is down to its tools for the next 3 months until we have the outcome of the county council elections. My view is I think it would be prudent to wait until the outcome of that before we press ahead spending any great deal of money on LGR or devolution. I do think, looking at the timescales left, that's probably not sufficient time to get the local and the unitary authorities in place by May of next year, but who knows where that will go and how many U-turns we'll have between now and then from the government about whatever decision we may get. So that would be my views. I think really we do need to join together. So Great Yarmouth, Carl Smith, leader of the Great Yarmouth Borough Council, has said that they are going to go on a go slow, as has Councillor Daniel Elmer of South Norfolk. So I'd hope that this council would be probably sort of joining them in that sort of sentiment. Thank you.
Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Well, yeah, you mentioned the fast track, and obviously we perhaps got to the doors of the train and were sent somewhere towards the back of the queue again, with the delays and all sorts of concerns about that we've raised previously. Of course, in terms of we'll be further behind in that project pipeline in terms of delivering on that investment, we'll be years behind where we should be. And people need to be able to see and feel the change of devolution. I think this, we're seeing another layer of public authority, and people need to be able to see the investment and the change that it's making in all corners of Norfolk and Suffolk. And we've obviously got some big aspirations around improving a transport provision for young people, for instance, and that needs to be seen because that's affecting decisions and choices for our young people in future. In terms of spend, I think to be honest, the spend will certainly be weighted beyond the elections in May, regardless. It's clearly not far away, and but we're clearly subject to a lot of uncertainty and change until then. But really, we need to discuss and agree or try and reach some sort of consensus with our counterparts at the other authorities in respect to how we move forward. I'm not too hung up in terms of the structural change order questionnaire and consultation the government has asked us to respond to. That's the sort of next thing on the list. That's sort of nuts and bolts detail. Very little of it is contentious or frankly of interest to general public. It's sort of fairly mundane facts. But ideally we'd be doing that. We'd be committing to those responses and this work together. And that's obviously desirable that we do that with the involvement of every council. So we'll have to obviously keep the matter under review. In terms of I don't want to repeat what I said in respect of our skepticism over local government reorganisation. I think if you were to do a sort of straw poll of members in the room, they would make their feelings very clear about the value of this work to our residents, to our businesses, to our community. We should be focusing on the fundamental needs of public services in terms of reform of adult social care, of children's services, investing in the quality and the quantity of public services. We are being told to do business as usual. We are being told to introduce new statutory services such as food waste. We're being given less money to do so, and we're being asked to pay for a complete strategic reorganisation of local government. And I just don't think that is a fair position to be putting local authorities under. It's certainly been quite a ride the last year or so. Yes, but I'm committed to obviously working with you as members, and certainly counterparts across political divides. I will reach out to members of all political parties in respect of these conversations. I've certainly had conversations with the Greens, and I've sought dialogue with Reform in recent days as well. And obviously we've got an interesting sort of landscape of political representation and leadership across the county regardless. And I think despite the big differences in terms of preferences over 1, 2 or 3 in terms of the models over LTR, we have been in the same room and worked together. So I don't think fundamentally that should change. I think that's it. Thank you.
Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just to add to what's already been said, in very simple terms, I think in a very short space of time, all bets are off. And clearly there are some significant events to unfold in the coming months. And I think from the perspective of this council, it's important that we keep our focus, as the leader has said, on delivering the services that we are required to. and to maintain a position of agility to respond to those events as and when they unfold. And that, I think, is probably as much about maintaining our finances in a position that we can deliver the most that we have, that we can from them without prejudicing the future options. And so it's about, I think, keeping your options open and that all important agility to respond. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor John Tolley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and thank you to Councillor Dixon. Very much thinking along the same lines. Really good point there. So let's save me to say some of it, but I think we need to. It's important that we understand those issues and that we address them. But yes, we pick up on the things that we have done, those relationships we've built, the things that we can do to actually still deliver for our residents, irrespective of what the government tries to impose upon us. And we will work through that confidently and assuredly. But actually, yeah, I mean, for me, the delay of devolution in terms of my portfolio and where funding was coming from is a nightmare. But we've got to look at the things we can do and yeah, to continue to deliver. And I think we've built some really good stuff that we can continue to build. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishes to speak? Well, thank you very much for that. We will go on to item 4, which is to receive declarations of interest on any of the things that are coming up later. No? Right, we can go on to the highlight of the evening. Chairman's communications. Let me find my 7 or 8 pages that I've got. Right, New Year's Day fireworks. What a lovely night. There was a high tide which ran at exactly the same time as the fireworks were going on, and northeasterly wind, and the tide was overtopping the promenade, and I kept my speech very quick as temperatures were around 0. But I managed to count down from 10 immaculately, you'll be pleased to hear, and the fireworks were set off, so that was all good. I then, on the 27th of January, went to Holocaust Memorial Day at St Peter Mancroft in Norwich for the Memorial Day service. There were survivor testimonies and reflections. And this was a very poignant service conducted in both Hebrew and English, remembering the victims of the Holocaust and of course, genocides in Cambodia and Bosnia and Rwanda and Darfur. We prove ourselves over and over again not to learn anything. I then, on the 14th of February, went to the King's Lynn Mart and didn't have a good time at all there, as you can see. Didn't play on the dodgems at all. No, that was a good day, and I managed to only catch our county chairman up once to give him a good bump, but I did manage to T-bone the police, which was really good. There was a short service to dedicate and bless the mart, and it's 821 years, I think they said, since the mart started. So that's a bit more history than we have, isn't it? There were a couple of other things I did go to. Puss in Boots at Sheringham Little Theatre, the staff panto, absolutely brilliant. I do have photos, but I promise not to show them. But I can report that Vice Chairman managed to resist Dame Trot's very pointed and obvious charms, shall we say. But that was brilliant, and I think they've raised an awful lot of money. So that was all very good. And on Friday, 6th of February, another wet and miserable day, I went and attended the service for Henry Bloggs' 150th birthday anniversary on top of the Cliffs Bar in North Lodge Park. And there was a goodly gathering there. So they are my communications this time. Thank you very much. I'll turn the loads of pages over and lost my place. Right, we go to the leaders' announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will just say, you delivered a fantastic speech at the New Year's Day fireworks. Very befitting for the 125 years of Premier Pier. So thank you for setting us off there. Well, first I wanted to highlight in the weeks following the last full council meeting, we secured the distribution of the second homes premium on the same basis as the current financial year. This represents another significant opportunity to help families experiencing or at risk of homelessness. And the revenue will be put to that use again to great effect, subject of course to your agreement to the budget this evening, and it will make a significant difference to many families in terms of the provision of housing, in terms of the provision of temporary accommodation, etc. And next I wish to highlight the success of the District Council's coastal team in securing a further share of funding to ensure the continuation of the Coastwise initiative. And this is a significant vote of confidence in the work being undertaken by our staff and the quality of the engagement with communities at risk or already impacted by coastal change. But it's also a significant opportunity for the country to learn from our experiences and to find new ways of adapting to and dealing with coastal erosion. So we thank our staff and communities for their continued efforts and engagement in this space. It's really truly fantastic what's been happening already, and very pleased to continue. Lastly, I wanted to thank all staff members and to Sheringham Little Theatre and to all who attended the staff panto this year. And this was really a lot of fun. And if you haven't been before, please do go next year. I won't say too much more about it, but really, I've always enjoyed it. My daughter's first panto this year's cross section appeal. I think I had to tell my daughter that it was a bit like Mr. Tumble, who is a character on CBeebies, who hopefully you aren't as familiar with as I am, although I do think it's a very, very impressive performer. But I think Mr. Hems was a perfect substitute for Mr. Tumble. But it was a very very good evening, and I really do encourage you to attend next year. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you very much. We come to public statements, and we have two speakers this evening, Julia and Alexander Drury. If one of you would like to go, Julia. You could be the first one to manage to press the right button. Oh, well done. You have 3 minutes, I'm afraid.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julia Drury. I was head of sixth form at Sheringham from 1995 to 2001. And obviously this relates to the motion you've got later on in your agenda about the proposed closure of this sixth form. The sixth form was set up to provide opportunities for both Sheringham students and those from the surrounding areas to study at A-level while offering also vocational opportunities. We had many students that did both vocational and academic courses side by side. It began with 32 students, a makeshift common room, and a donated sofa. By the time I left, there were 150 in the sixth form, and it grew I know, to over 200 in the years that followed. We sent students to university. We sent students to the good universities, the Russell Group universities. We sent students to East London University. We sent students on post A-level management training courses with big companies across the spectrum. And our philosophy was to take any student that had the basic GCSE qualifications for A-level and make them into learning machines, if you like. We supported them, we encouraged them, we pushed them, and we constantly talked about their potential. We aimed to inspire so that they aspired to meet their targets, reach their dreams. We certainly insisted that each student met regularly with a mentor, talked through their education so far. We talked to staff who ensured that each student had tailored support. Sheringham High School Sixth Form, obviously I'm biased, but Sheringham High School Sixth Form certainly became an asset to the community. It provided the community with a school with a sixth form.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to stop
Oh
you.
dear. Right. Thank you. Thank you.
And now Alexander Drury. Still the same quick 3 minutes, I'm
Yep.
afraid.
Certainly. So good evening, councillors. Thank you for your time. My name's Alex Drury. Please don't be deceived by my accent. I was born in Norwich. I grew up in Sheringham. I went to Sheringham Primary School, Sheringham High School, and from 1998 to 2000, I was a student at Sheringham Sixth Form. I want to tell you a little bit about Sheringham Sixth Form. For me, it was a real springboard to ambitions I had in academia. I went off to Lancaster University, did my degree and my master's there, and I've since settled in Greater Manchester and had a decent career there, working primarily for the University of Manchester. But I wanted to talk to you briefly about two things, really. The first is I'm in touch with many of my peer group from 98 to 2000, and I want to tell you a little bit about the impact that some of them have had upon the community here in North Norfolk and what they've contributed. So my best friend at college is now a successful small business owner who employs local people and lives in West Runton. Another of my good friends is now a physiotherapist, providing services to primarily the over 60s and the older sort of cohort of our community here. Funnily enough, I bumped into an officer of North Norfolk District Council on my way in tonight, who also was at college with me. And another good friend I had has been a long-standing member of Norfolk Police. So the first point I want to make to you is that having a college locally does help you to retain people in the community, younger people, and it helps them to, as my mum said, to aspire to become really useful members of society and people that you need in terms of supporting your services and encouraging the local economy to grow. The second point I'd like to make is I mentioned briefly earlier that I spent a lot of time in my career working at the University of Manchester and did quite a lot of outreach work with young people in the towns to the north of Greater Manchester, places like Oldham, Rochdale, Middleton. Some of you might know. They came from very low aspiration backgrounds, and I was doing that role at the time that tuition fees were just being introduced. Around 2010 to 2012. And what I learned from that is that for people that do come from, you know, potentially low aspiration households that don't have a tradition of education, you know, in their family. Any barrier to education is really, really significant, substantial. And a lot of the time, those young people just wanted to talk to me about tuition fees, which was understandable, but obviously it was very stark to me that a barrier had been created that put a lot of them off from potentially achieving their potential. So I really hope, obviously in a much smaller way, we don't go down a similar path with Sheringham Sixth Form. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope you'll consider that when you vote on the motion later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfectly timed. Right, we now go on to item 9 on your agenda, pay policy statement. Councillor Adams. Oh, appointments to committees, sorry. Item 8. Councillor Adams, appointments to committees.
Well, I believe there was an appointment with Councillor Conor Rouse to the Norfolk Health Avian Scrutiny Committee as a substitute member following the discussions at Avian Scrutiny Committee. I'm only aware of that change, so if that needs to be proposed, does that need to be supported by the full council? Sorry, or is that just accepting the recommendations of the Avian Scrutiny Committee at a later point?
There's a recommendation, so I think it's.
That's fine then.
Okay.
That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cushing, nothing? Councillor Punchett? Right, now we go on to item 9, pay policy. Councillor Adams.
Well, very simply, I will propose the recommendations. Thank you.
May I have a seconder? Thank you, Lucy. Is there anybody wishes to speak on this? No, then we can go straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. We go on to item 10 then, car park orders. Councillor Shires.
Good evening. Apologies to members. They've probably got a lot of my voice within the coming I was going to say minutes, but it could be a little bit longer than that. Apologies to everybody. So the car parking order is the follow-on in the process from the previously agreed car parking fees by this council. And I really want to be clear about something that's been perhaps lost in some of the wider discussion and reporting on this paper. The increases within this order do not affect our standard inland town centre car parks. We are acutely aware of the sensitivity of high streets outside of our resorts and coastal areas. Market towns do operate differently from other destinations. Footfall patterns are different, dwell times are different, and the economic pressures are very different, and our approach reflects that. We have not applied a blanket increase across all sites. Changes in standard inland town centre car parks remain structured to support local trade, short stay visits and access to services. In contrast, our resort and coastal car parks operate in a very different demand environment. Seasonal visitor pressure, coastal tourism and infrastructure costs create a significant but different financial context. These car parks support our investment in assets within those areas. This order recognises those differences. We're not taking a one-size-fits-all approach. We are trying to balance economic vitality, fairness to residents, and the need for car parks to contribute sustainably to their own upkeep and the upkeep of tourist infrastructure and our public toilets. There's a few items in there which touched on feedback, and I will just address those. Hornbeam Road in North Walsham was relating to 22 of the responses that we received, and that was mentioning the majority is the surrounding impact on residential streets. Residents for many years have called for double yellow lines along Hornbeam Road to deter long stay parking. And that decision rests with Norfolk County Council as the Highways Authority. And to date, they have not considered the issue to meet the threshold for formal restrictions. Across North Walsham, as a North Walsham member and other North Walsham members in the room will realise that this tension is not unique. Many of our roads in the town experience frustration around on-street parking, particularly where some homes have driveways and others do not. We have a significant number of properties without enough off-street car parking, and that must increasingly become a consideration in responses to planning applications. And it's really important that we have some clarity that this car park was never designed to solve displacement parking on nearby roads. It was intended to support sustainable transport connections, particularly the nearby train station and the very well used Norwich Road bus stop. Last year, we introduced parking charges at this site to test whether it could generate sufficient income to cover its own maintenance. And it is reasonable to expect that our car parks can be financially sustainable within their own right. However, through conversations with residents, I've heard that while parking permits work well for regular users, occasional users felt the daily rate was far too high, particularly those parking to access the train or to take advantage of the improved bus timetable from the very popular Norwich Road bus stop. I've also heard from older residents who use the car park to take advantage of concessionary bus travel. For them, price sensitivity really does matter. It was suggested that the 24-hour rate should sit close to the pricing at the train station of £3, and that is a reasonable comparison, and we're prepared to test that alignment and monitor the impact carefully. This is about balance, ensuring financial responsibility whilst responding proportionately to how the car park is actually used. Tourism is also mentioned, and it is one of North Norfolk's greatest strengths. Our coastline, our market towns, our independent businesses, they attract visitors from across the country and beyond. But tourism also brings pressure. Our coastal and resort car parks experience significant seasonal demand. They require higher levels of maintenance, more frequent resurfacing, waste management, signage enforcement, and safety monitoring. It is reasonable that those who use and benefit from our tourist infrastructure contribute towards its upkeep. And that was not about penalising visitors, it's about ensuring sustainability. At the same time, we remain mindful that tourism underpins many local livelihoods, and our pricing remains extremely competitive with neighbouring authorities and comparable coastal destinations. This order seeks to strike that balance, supporting tourism whilst protecting local taxpayers and ensuring that our car parks remain safe, maintained and financially sustainable. And there was also one additional section which we did not expect, and that is where it comes to the provisions relating to eating and cooking within our car parks. Let me just be absolutely clear. This order is not about stopping someone from enjoying North Norfolk's finest fish and chips in their car after a day at the coast. That has never been our intention. The purpose of the restriction is to prevent parking spaces from being used for cooking activity like barbecues or picnic places. These provisions are not unusual. They are standard in parking orders across the country and exist to ensure car parks remain safe, accessible and appropriately used. Following consultation, we have clarified that wording to remove any ambiguity. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I propose the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Councillor Adams is seconding.
Yes, well, second, I feel these are very modest increases that keep pace with inflation and help us cover the cost, both the car parks and associated management maintenance, but numerous other discretionary activity largely associated with the visitor economy in terms of public toilets, the pier, country parks, and much more. So without these car parks, of course, you would really have none of those assets which are supporting business and providing amenities for residents across the district. And of course, the charges for using those car parks have to keep pace with inflation. Otherwise, the money you're able to spend on that infrastructure will gradually become more strained and reduced over time. And obviously no one really wants to see us spending less or reducing those facilities, given the economic and social needs of our district. So, yeah, this is obviously routine, and it should be looked upon. We are obviously committed to reviewing this on a frequent basis as per the discussions at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which I welcome. And I think I've had a good look at it. And I think it's a good decision as well in terms of the standard car parks, the inland market town car parks, as Lucy referred to. We, must take a look at the market conditions and make an assessment. And it's right. We have an approach that's reflective of that. And yeah, obviously they won't hold it the same charge forever, but in the course of time that will change. But certainly this is the right level of charge, and I welcome again the work that the Overview and Scrutiny members across the chamber have committed to this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Anybody wish to speak to this? If not, we will again go to the vote. All those in favour, please. It's unanimous. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Item 11, recommendations from Cabinet. It's Lucy Shires.
I'm sorry, members. So the recommendations are set out before you. The capital strategy has been both to Overview and Scrutiny and to Cabinet. The Treasury Management Strategy has been to the Governance, Risk and Audit Committee and Cabinet. The Business Rates Policy has been to Overview and Scrutiny Committee and Cabinet, and has the medium-term financial strategy. I won't speak to all the papers. I just wanted to speak to the Business Rates Relief Policy, because I understand our businesses with announcements and current economic climate are finding themselves sometimes in a difficult place. I just wanted to outline some of the things mentioned in the policy and reiterate our commitment to local businesses. So, Chair and colleagues, tonight we're being asked to approve revisions to our discretionary rate relief policy and to confirm the delegated authorities that allow us to administer that policy efficiently, fairly and responsibly. And at its heart, this policy is absolutely about balance between supporting businesses and protecting public finances, balance between implementing national policy and responding to local need, and a balance between both flexibility and accountability. And that balance is particularly important in the current economic climate. For organisations paying business rates, there is the potential for up to 100% discretionary relief where justified, but I wanted to be clear, this is not an automatic process. Each application is judged on its merits. The policy is not a rigid checklist, it's a framework that allows us to consider the contribution an organisation makes to our district, to our amenities, to our high streets and to residents' well-being. That local judgment matters. It reflects our understanding of North Norfolk's economy and the role businesses play within it. From April 2026, several national changes come into effect and our policy must align with them. The government has introduced a new 10-year 100% relief for eligible EV charging points and EV-only forecourts. These properties will be identified by the VOA and fully funded through a Section 13 grant. This supports the transition to electric vehicles and investment in infrastructure, and importantly, it is fully funded, so it is at no cost to this council. Members will know that retail, hospitality and leisure relief has reduced over recent years from 75 to 50, again to 40%. And from April 26, that scheme ends and will be replaced with the two lower national multipliers. We had the pleasure of Officer Knight at Overview and Scrutiny Committee last, who was able to answer all the technical questions, and he truly is an asset to our team. The basis of relief shifts from the VOA classification to occupation type, and while councils will be compensated for income loss, our local discretionary scheme must now formally end the existing retail, hospitality and leisure discount in line with government policy. This is not a local withdrawal of support at all. It is aligned with national reform, and businesses will continue to receive support through the new multiplier structure. There is positive news here. The government is funding a relief scheme for businesses whose rateable value increases at the 2026 revaluation and who, as a result, will lose small business rates relief, rural rate relief, or the retail, hospitality and leisure relief. This relief will be capped at the higher of £800 or transitional caps and will apply for 3 years. It will be delivered locally under our discretionary powers at Section 47 of the Local Government Finance Act 1988. Importantly, a previous scheme that was due to end in March 26 has been extended for another year, providing continuity and stability for businesses adjusting to change. The 40% film studios relief introduced in April 25 will continue to 2034, and this forms part of the national strategy to support creative industries and attract inward investment sectors that bring jobs, skills and spending into our local economies. The government has also announced that eligible pubs and live music venues will benefit from a 15% business rates relief in 26-27 and bills frozen in real terms for a further 2 years. This council estimates around 100 properties locally will benefit, with relief totaling approximately 161,000 in the coming year. This really is meaningful support for a district like ours, with vibrant market towns, a strong hospitality sector and venues that are central in community life. Again, this will be fully compensated by government, including the administrative costs. So the recommendations confirm that the Revenues Manager retains delegated authority to make decisions up to £4,000. The same applies for the hardship relief, and the policy is formally revised in line with appendices A, B and C. This ensures that we remain efficient and responsive while maintaining appropriate oversight and financial control. But Mr. Chairman, I really want to say this clearly. If any of our businesses are struggling with their business rates, they should contact the council as early as possible. We are here to help, whether that is through our relief schemes, hardship support, payment arrangements or advice. Early engagement will really make a difference. We would far rather work with a business to find a solution than see difficulties escalate unnecessarily. Finally, some good news for this council. As of the 31st of January this year, we have collected £99.43 million of council tax, and that sits at 89.8%, and £28.705 million of business rates, and that's at 91.5%. And in a challenging economic environment, these are really strong collection rates. They reflect the professionalism of our revenues team, for which we offer our sincerest thanks, the resilience of our residents and businesses, and trust that people place in this council.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Do we have members wishing to speak? No. Are we happy to take all these on block and these 4 motions? Right, jolly good. We'll go straight to the vote. We don't need a proposer or a seconder. So we'll go straight to those. Those in favour, please. Right, we are unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 12, recommendations from overview and scrutiny. Councillor Holliday.
There are none that don't pertain to the matters that we've just discussed. There are none in addition.
Thank you very much. Well, I see we're at about 4 minutes to 7 and we've got quite a lot of business to go through. So I propose that we have a 5-minute break, and please, can you keep it to a 5-minute break or I shall get really angry. Thank you very much for being so good. You know, I put a little mark down on me book. Right, we are at item 13. A budget council tax 26-27. So we will go to the procedural note, which is what you have in front of you. And there's going to be a number of recorded votes with this one. And to start us off, our Section 15 officer, Don McCullum, is going to speak about these estimates.
Thank you, Chair. Myself and my officers have considered the base assumptions we used to form this budget and performed relevant sensitivity analysis to understand the likely variances. Such assumptions included interest rates, inflation, tax collection rates, potential rebates, and known unfunded new burdens. We scrutinised past performance within the context and relevant future, the current and relevant future legislation for financial impact and risk to the council. Based on this extensive research and analysis, I am confident to recommend the robustness of the budget proposals.
Thank you very much. And now we have the portfolio holder for Finance, Councillor Shires.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Officer McCallum. Members, in creating this budget, our priority has been to maintain the high quality of services that our residents rely on, whilst also, again, being fiscally responsible. And I'm pleased to announce that despite a deeply disappointing funding review, we have balanced the budget for the coming year. And that achievement is a testament to the hard work and dedication of both officers and members. And I sincerely thank every single one of you for the discipline and the collaboration shown throughout this process. For rural district councils such as North Norfolk, the so-called fair funding review has fallen far short of its promise. The Labour government has determined that prudent councils like ours will be guaranteed funding at only 95% of our core spending power. Rural districts have once again lost out, receiving a smaller share of redistributed funding, whilst metropolitan areas continue to be prioritised. This reinforces a concern I have long held, that central government does not fully understand communities like ours. The funding formula may be national, but its consequences are intensely local. This is not a new challenge. Since 2010, district councils, particularly shire districts, have experienced some of the deepest reductions in local government funding. And at the same time, demand-led pressures such as temporary accommodation and the implementation of food waste services continue to grow. Even with careful financial planning, the room for manoeuvre becomes narrower each year. North Norfolk isn't alone in facing these pressures, but we must be honest about their scale. National economic volatility, inflationary pressures, pay award uncertainty, and fluctuating interest rates all continue to increase the cost of delivering services. These are factors largely beyond our control. And yet, despite this climate, this council remains financially stable. Through prudent financial management, disciplined use of reserves, careful forecasting, and a clear medium-term financial strategy, we have protected essential services and maintained a balanced and sustainable position. While others face instability, we continue to plan responsibly and safeguard the long-term financial resilience of North Norfolk. The shortfall in government funding for temporary accommodation remains one of our most significant financial challenges. By the end of this financial year, we anticipate a temporary accommodation funding gap of £400,000, a position that is likely to continue into the next year. This is a national crisis affecting councils across the country, but we are determined that North Norfolk's residents will not face its consequences unsupported. It was in response to these sustained pressures that this council introduced the 100% second homes premium last year. I'm pleased to confirm that in this budget, North Norfolk's 7.3% share of this premium, approximately £663,000, will be used to mitigate government funding shortfalls and to maintain the Second Homes Premium Reserve. That reserve will continue to provide stability, particularly in managing temporary accommodation costs. In addition, we've once again successfully negotiated a 25% share of the County Council's Second Homes Premium, estimated at £1.7 million. This agreement ensures that the capital investment we have committed for temporary accommodation can now be funded without borrowing, saving this council and our taxpayers approximately £5 million in interest repayments. Members will also be aware of the forthcoming introduction of weekly food waste collections. While we support the environmental ambition behind this policy, the funding provided by central government to both establish and deliver this service falls short of the true cost. The initial capital allocations have underestimated the real expense of vehicles, containers and operational setup, and the ongoing revenue funding does not even reflect the cost of collection in a large rural district such as ours. Once again, the gap between national policy and local delivery risks falling to the local taxpayer. We will work to implement this service responsibly and efficiently, but we must be clear that it is not being funded at a level that reflects the realities on the ground in North Norfolk. It underlines once again the disconnect between national assumptions and the practical realities of delivering services in rural districts like North Norfolk. I've been clear in my commitment to working constructively with all members of this council throughout both the budget monitoring and budget setting process, always in the best interests of North Norfolk residents. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their time, diligence and engagement in helping us reach this stage. Scrutiny strengthens decision making and that contribution is valued. I again ask for your continued support in the year ahead. And for the first time, I would also really like to place on record my thanks to all opposition members for their constructive support throughout this budget process. At a time when the national political stage can feel volatile, here in North Norfolk, we have demonstrated that our focus remains firmly on the communities we serve. We began this year's budget setting process facing a projected £1.8 million deficit. The scale of work required to close that gap has been significant, and I want to place on record my sincerest thanks to officers across this council for the diligence, professionalism and creativity they have shown in bringing forward the balanced budget I present today. It is also important to recognise that changes in government funding and expectations have added a further £2.4 million to our projected future deficits, despite the substantial work undertaken locally. That context makes the achievement before us today all the more significant. Our officers here have fully understood the scale of the financial challenges before us and have met them every single day, not simply in preparing this budget paper, but in the ongoing delivery of services to our residents. I want to personally thank them all for their professionalism, resilience and dedication to North Norfolk. They've embraced the direction set by Cabinet and this council, and they share our determination to preserve frontline services wherever possible, while securing the long-term sustainability of this authority. I also extend my thanks to my Cabinet colleagues for the way they've engaged constructively with this process. They've responded positively to the scrutiny of their portfolio budgets and worked collaboratively to identify solutions. That collective discipline has been essential in ensuring we continue to deliver for our residents while maintaining financial stability. The local government finance settlement guarantees councils like ours only 95% of their core spending power, on the assumption that district councils will apply the maximum council tax increase permitted without triggering a referendum, 2.99% or £5 on a Band D property, whichever is greater. This budget proposes an increase of £5.13 for a Band D property, the equivalent of less than 10 pence per week. It is also important to remember that North Norfolk District Council only retains a small proportion of the council tax we collect. For every £1 paid, just 7.3 pence remains with this council. The majority, 74.9 pence, is allocated to Norfolk County Council, 14 pence to the Norfolk Police Authority, and the remaining 3.8 pence to town and parish councils. In the 24-25 budget, we paused the Sustainable Communities Fund, and I made a clear commitment to members in this chamber that this was a pause and not a withdrawal. This year, I'm delighted to announce its return in a new form, a dedicated members fund investing £160,000 directly back into our communities. Each councillor will have an allocation of £4,000 to support projects within their ward. This approach empowers members to respond directly to local need. We know from experience that even modest grants can act as a catalyst, stimulating wider improvements and strengthening community cohesion. By earmarking this fund now, we reaffirm our commitment to local initiative and ensure residents see tangible benefits from their council. This fund will operate within a clear and robust governance framework, and I welcome cross-party engagement in shaping how it's administered. Since 2019, this Liberal Democrat administration has committed over £147 million to capital investments across North Norfolk. In the past 12 months alone, we've continued to deliver projects that reflect our clear priorities for the district. We completed the Cromer and Munsley Coastal Protection Schemes and continued work on the nationally significant Coast Wipes project, which itself has been recognised by government by the allocation of an additional, demonstrating our firm commitment to our greener future. We have completed the long-awaited backstage refurbishment of the Cromer Pier Pavilion Theatre, alongside essential maintenance to the Grade 2 listed pier itself. We proudly opened new public conveniences and a changing places facility in Holt. In Sheringham, a new accessible play area has been delivered and work has begun on the Fakenham Leisure and Sports Hub, reinforcing our commitment to developing our communities. This administration continued to invest in additional temporary accommodation to ensure that families can remain housed within their own communities, delivering on our commitment to meeting our housing needs. This year has also seen us as a key role in supporting North Norfolk's economy through the delivery of the Rural England Prosperity Fund alongside the UK Shared Profit Fund. We have further invested in our tourism economy through capital refurbishment of our coastal assets, underlining our commitment to investing in our local economy and infrastructure. These achievements demonstrate that when we commit to a programme of investment, we deliver tangible improvements to our residents. The capital proposals for 26-27 build on that strong track record, ensuring continued investment in the environment, amenities and infrastructure that matter most to North Norfolk. This budget commits over £10.6 million in further capital investment across our district, £820,000 towards our greener future, including further decarbonations of this office, reducing both our carbon footprint and our energy costs. £3.9 million towards developing our communities, including £120,000 for play area improvements, £40,000 to refurbish the well-used public conveniences on Newgate Lane in Wells, and £3.6 million of long-term investment in the substructure of Cromer Pier. £4 million towards meeting our housing needs through the purchase of additional temporary accommodation, supporting residents during the ongoing housing crisis. £1.8 million towards investing in our local economy and infrastructure, including £740,000 to renovate the Cornish Way industrial units and Cedar House in North Walsham. Members will note the continued investment in Cromer, one of our principal coastal resort towns. These improvements enhance the visitor experience, support our tourism economy and protect the livelihoods that depend on it. This budget reflects our unwavering commitment to North Norfolk and residents. We have faced significant challenges, but we have met them with discipline and determination, continuing to invest in our communities while securing the long-term financial resilience of this council. Members will be aware that the government's programme for local government reorganisation proposes the creation of new unitary authorities by April 2028. At present, no additional grant funding has been provided to support councils through this transition. This places us in a challenging position. The government has clearly stated that they will impose reorganisation on councils where consensus does not exist. Until legislation is passed and a new authority is formally established, we are legally required to set a balanced budget and maintain a robust medium-term financial strategy on the basis that North Norfolk District Council continues to operate. And at the same time, we must plan prudently for potential structural change. The £750,000 earmark reserve we are establishing for local government reorganisation is therefore a necessary step. The government expects councils to meet the costs of reorganisation from within existing resources. Whether or not members support that direction of travel, it would be financially irresponsible not to prepare. It's also worth noting that the pathway to devolution and reorganisation did not begin in this chamber. The Conservative administration at County Hall chose to open that door and has now withdrawn, leaving this council to navigate the consequences. Our responsibility is to not rehearse that history, but to ensure that North Norfolk remains financially secure, whatever the outcome. On that basis, I give this council the commitment that if the government's expected announcement regarding the future structure of Norfolk councils does not result in local government reorganisation for which we are required to meet the costs, I will bring this reserve back before full council so that members may determine an alternate use for those funds. Last year, we projected a shrinking deficit. Recent government decisions have increased the financial burdens we face. But let me be clear, we are not standing still. Work continues to address the forecasted deficits to ensure the sustainability of this council and the assets for the future. Beyond today, we must turn our focus to the future of this council's finances, just as every local authority across the country is doing, and we must do this together. Whilst we have certainty that we will remain funded at 95% for the coming years, we once hoped for a fair funding review. I no longer have confidence that fairness extends to rural communities like ours. Through this budget and future budgets, we will be there to support our residents where government is failing. Finally, I'd like to update members on the latest budget money position at period 10. When I last reported at period 6, we were forecasting a £300,000 surplus. Officers are finalising the report, which will be presented at the next Cabinet meeting in March. The outcome reflects careful in-year supervision, disciplined financial control and responsible decision-making. It will allow us to protect our reserves and ensure that we enter the next financial year from a position of strength. My final thanks must go to our Section 151 officer, Mr. McCallum, and our Deputy 151 officer, Mr. King, and our entire finance team. On behalf of this council, I wholeheartedly thank you for your dedication and expertise in bringing us to a balanced budget. We have not chosen the financial climate in which we operate, but we have chosen how we respond to it, with discipline, with integrity, and with an unwavering commitment to the people of North Norfolk. Mr. Chairman, I formally propose this as our budget for the coming financial year.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Well done. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Adams, are you reserving your right to speak?
There may not be a need, but I will second. I will second and reserve my right to speak for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start by offering my thanks to the finance team for all the work they've done to draft the budget, and indeed all officers who've done work in order to contribute what we're discussing this evening. And I'm particularly grateful to Officer McCallum and to Officer King for the support they've given my group over the last 3 months to help us understand the budget and discuss some ideas that we have had for amendments. Also, I'd like to thank Councillor Shires for the ongoing dialogue that we've had with regard to the budget in Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and particularly helpful discussion that we had with Councillor Bayes, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Adams to discuss some potential amendments which have culminated in the one that we have for Stalham this evening, which we will propose later in proceedings. I'll start with the revenue budget, and I am pleased too that we have a balanced budget being presented to us this evening. I agree entirely with Councillor Shah's comments about the government penalising district councils by allocating a settlement which is only 95% of core spending power. I believe this is part of a coordinated assault by the Labour government on our rural communities. This follows the introduction of the family farm tax, which will push many of our smaller farms into bankruptcy. The government have increased business rates by about 30%, which is damaging our business community, and many will struggle to survive. Pubs are often the focal point of many of our rural communities, and they play a vital role in the social cohesion in many villages. The impact of the increased business rates is resulting in 2 closing every day. The government is now consulting on closing more rural post offices, and have even removed BAT relief on places of worship, which means church repairs will cost 20% more. Now, as I'm sure everyone here is aware, we have the highest density of churches anywhere in England, and in North we have some of the most wonderful examples of medieval architecture, which are now under increased threat. Then we come to the end of the shared Prosperity Fund and Rural England Prosperity Funds, which were instigated by the last Conservative government to replace EU funding. This funding has provided huge help to many of our businesses. This funding was meant to be replaced by the new Merrill funding. This has now been delayed by 2 years to 2028, and no alternative provision has been proposed. I note that the government has also baked in the council tax increase into our settlement that we've been given, and I do really question the wisdom of doing this, as it disincentivises councils from making efficiencies that may actually negate the need to increase our proportion of the council tax. Looking forward, I am concerned about the consequence of our diminished settlement, that we are predicting significant deficits from 2027. I think we're okay in the next financial year, but after that, there's a predicted deficit of £1 million, rising to £2 million in 2029. It has been assumed that this council will cease to be in 2028, so we need not worry about it too much about the longer term. However, as we understand, the leader of the county council announced that they will cease cooperating with the government to implement local government reform. This means it effectively stops it dead for at least till a new administration is elected in May, and we have no idea how the land will lie after that. I do believe there's now a real possibility that local government reform and devolution will not happen. So this means I think the council needs to give serious consideration as to how it will balance the budget in future years. I do think the financial strategy document is actually very good, but I think in light of that Section 8, which is on mitigating any budget gaps, we'll need fleshing out onto how we can determine how this budget gap could be closed. One initiative that our group is happy to support is the New Communities Fund. The Conservative group voted against the removal of the Sustainable Communities Fund 2 years ago. Last year, we submitted an amendment to resurrect that fund because we believe it's a vital tool to give some support for our far-flung rural communities. The Liberal Democrat group voted that down, our attempt down then. However, I'm really pleased to see that our arguments were so persuasive that they brought a variant back this year. And I confirm that we will be happy to participate in the working group. I'll come to the capital programme. It's a little bit naughty, Councillor Shars, to say the Liberal Democrats have spent £147 million since 2029. A fair proportion of that money, as you all appreciate, comes from central government, not from this council. Indeed, if you look at the current financial year, of the over 38 million we have in the capital programme, I think 24.5 of that actually comes from central government. But I do have some further comments to make on that. And my real concern is our ability to actually deliver it all. Currently, there are 59 projects in the existing corporate programme. By the time we're done this evening, there'll be a further 19 added, which gives us a total of 78 projects. Now, my scanning through those suggests that little or no work's been started on about 20 of them. Therefore, I believe an assessment does need to be made on each of them, particularly those that have been on the capital programme for several years now. And I think some prioritisation of those would be good in order to challenge whether they are actually still required. And in addition, I think as this assessment needs to be made in light of the council's capacity to actually support all of these, particularly if we actually do proceed with LGR. Given the potential officers' constraints, I think we need to cut our coat according to our cloth, so to speak. I do have some suggestions, which leads me to the second point, which I raise every year, and that's the large proportion of projects which are for Cromer. Out of the 78 projects in the new capital programme to be approved this evening, 23 are Chroma initiatives. And this excludes all of those which are coastal programs and those for the Chroma office. So those 23 projects equate to about 30% of the program. And you put that in context, the population of Chroma, I believe, is around about 8,000 people, which is about 7% of the total population of North Norfolk. Now, I know Councillor Shires makes two arguments to justify this largesse. The first, that the NNDC own lots of assets in the town, so must spend money to maintain them. The Chroma Pier has had many millions spent on it over the last 6 years, and it's proposed to spend many million more with further maintenance planned. The pier is a listed structure, so the council is mandated to repair it whether we like it or not. But the point I would make about this is that there does need to be fairness about the allocation of the remaining financial resources to make sure that we're not discriminating against other towns and parishes. Several of the other proposed college projects seem to me to really fall into the nice to have category, like sprucing up social and sunken gardens. And I would actually ask why the Chroma Town Council is not being engaged to see whether they can take some responsibility for these. And if local government reform does proceed, they're going to have to, because I think most of the towns and parishes, we're going to have to go through a review of all of our assets to see what can be passed on, because I think it's highly unlikely that new unitary authorities are going to take on the large book that we have at the moment. I mean, we have large parts of our district that receive very little, particularly the whole area east of North Walsham. And someone really does need to speak up on their behalf about that unfairness. And I know Councillor Shires makes another point saying the Chroma car parks generate a lot of income for the council, and that's absolutely true, they do. But by my calculations, they generate about £5 million in the last 6 years. However, the car park's overhead costs run at about 40%. So that means in real terms, it's about £3 million, which is a lot less we've spent on, but compared to say the 5 million was spent on the pier in the same time. One area where we do actually have a substantial agreement on is that is on kitchen waste collection. I have to say, I have never been a fan of this in the first place. I know it was instigated by the last government, but I really do think it's a nonsensical proposal in a large area like North Norfolk. And I really just fail to see how having large waste vehicles trundling around the nooks and crannies of our byroads to pick up some leftovers is going to be carbon neutral, let alone having any substantial impact on climate change. And as Councillor Shires has said, the funding for this is wholly inadequate. Given that the council will need to enter in a contract with a waste provider to deliver this, I think it's something that would sensibly be postponed till we really understand what's happening with LGR. In conclusion, I do welcome that, as I said before, the announcement that the county councils are back on. As stated, I do have serious doubts about local government reform. There seems to be no financial incentive for either Norfolk or Suffolk to proceed with either. I do think it's sensible, as mentioned earlier, that we put £750,000 aside for this work, but I do think actually there should be a pause until we understand what's happening come May. As I mentioned, I think the capital programme needs a lot of attention, and we do need to worry. I think of that, we don't need to worry about the projects which are funded by central government, like the coastal programmes and the Flash swimming pool in Fakenham. But as I said, that accounts for about 2/3 of the funding. Given the other resource constraints, I do think the other 70-odd projects do need to prioritise and cut down to a number which we're at least confident we can deliver. And that fairness should cover fairness to all parts of the districts and not just the £4,000 member allowance that the new fund will give us. So in conclusion, Mr. Chairman, we do face an uncertain future. We have the most incompetent and clueless government of my lifetime. We've got to a stage where you cannot take anything they say at face value, as they're likely to make a U-turn the next day. So I would say that where we can, we will work with the administration to try and navigate these choppy waters in order to do the best for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. We now have Councillor Punchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try and keep this brief as it's a long night ahead. A big thanks to Councillor Shires, who many months ago engaged with myself in a blank book budgeting exercise, which we spent many hours looking at everything down to grassroots, and constantly responded to my challenges to why, and why again, looking at all of our finances, and pleased that this has resulted in a balanced budget and a reduction in borrowing. The members fund is a great thing to have back. And I remember way back when coming onto this council as part of that original group, with whatever title it was called then. I think the most frustrating thing for me is the cuts that are being done to us from above, which we have no control over, and our burdens are continuing to increase. There is short-term positivity, but like Councillor Cushing said, there is concern in the medium term onwards. It does always pain me to vote for an increase in council tax, but on this occasion, having been involved from day one with Councillor Shires, I can see no other option to maintain the required level of services that our electorate demand and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Punchard. Councillor Shires.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll address Councillor Cushing first. Councillor Cushing, the day that I'm surprised at your response to my budget will be a very, very different day in here. There is nothing that you've said that we've not already discussed, so I welcome the fact that we've had such a strong dialogue from the conception of the budget to this point, that I know your concerns. So thank you for that in entirety. At some point in the future, I wish Cromer to not be the centre of discourse when it comes to making investment in our tourism economy. Councillor Punchard, thank you very, very much for the challenge that we had, and we did have lots of phone calls of despair, really, at what central government were imposing on us. So I think what I have learned throughout this process is that careful engagement and honest engagement with all members of the council have driven us to arrive at where we are today. And because of that, I feel that everybody in this chamber is firmly committed on what we can do for North Norfolk while we've got our hands tied behind our back from central government. So thank you to both of you.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Councillor Cushing, would you like to respond?
No, thank you. I've got nothing else to add.
And Councillor Punchard?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. Before opening up the debate, we have an amendment, as Councillor Cushing alluded to, and it's been submitted in advance to the Section 15 officer, and Councillor Bayes is the proposer and is seconded by Councillor Shires. Councillor Bayes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the cross-party working needed to bring this forward. This is an important amendment to Stalham. It goes to show that sometimes we can work on the same sides and can work together for the good of our communities. Also, a huge thanks to Councillor Taylor, who decided in his role as Vice Chair not to speak on this amendment, but has done a huge amount of work researching and putting this together. Over a year ago, we had plans to close down our public toilets in Stalham, and the response was clear from Stalham. Over half the town signed our petition, Keep Them Open, a victory that was secured for a temporary agreement to shelve the closure. Since that point, we've regularly engaged with Councillor Shires over the future of the toilet provision in Stalham. At this point, Stalham toilets are probably the best represented toilet block in Norfolk. We've worked together behind the scenes to bring forward this amendment based on and in the for the people of Stalham to secure the provision for years to come. We hope to relocate and one day bring forward a modern facility which better supports the future growth of the town. The amendment today is the first step in that plan. We hope the investment in the feasibility of such a project will help the council or whichever council takes this forward to be aware of the potential barriers or opportunities. In particular, I'd like to thank Councillor Adams, Shires, Cushing and Dixon and our Section 151 officer, Don McCallum, for your help and support to bring this forward. I'm happy to propose this amendment to the council.
I believe Councillor Shires is seconding. You reserving your right, or you just?
Thank you. Chair, I particularly welcome the way members of the Conservative group have worked with me on this proposal. While national politics can often feel increasingly polarised and unpleasant, it is important that here at a local level we demonstrate that collaboration, respect and a focus on outcome still comes first. I'm really pleased to second the amendment to our own budget. It's not a commitment to build, but it is a commitment to do the groundwork properly. Stalham's current public toilet provision does not meet the standard that our residents and this council expect from our public conveniences. It is also arguably not ideally located. Usage data does suggest that the current facility is not well used. Rather than ignore that, we're choosing to respond to it, to understand why, and to explore whether a better located, more accessible facility would serve the town more effectively. This feasibility study will give us a clear evidence-based foundation. For £25,000, we will understand the real cost, the risks, the planning constraints, the ecological requirements, the drainage implications, and the likely delivery timescales. We'll also assess the viability of incorporating a change in places facility. Without this work, we are all just merely speculating. With it, we are planning responsibly. And as Cabinet Member for Finance, I'm very comfortable with this approach. It's a prudent, it is proportionate, and it protects the council from making uninformed capital commitments. If external funding becomes available in future, we will be ready with a properly scoped, costed and risk assessed project, not starting from scratch. This amendment aligns with both local priorities for Stalham and our wider district commitment to maintaining accessible public conveniences where they are needed most. It is modest in cost, it is strategic in intent, and it is the right next step. And I urge members to support it. There's just a slight tweak of which I've already spoken to Conservative colleagues about. And in the proposed amendment in the third paragraph, it states funding for the study will be drawn from. And I just want to change it to read the asset management reserve to the amount of £25,000. That's the only change that I wish to make. I don't know if we need to propose and second that. I don't know if it needs to be, we're getting complicated because we're in an amendment to an amendment now.
Is that agreed? If that can be an agreed amendment, I think that would be the easiest way forward and consider it as that is the proposed amendment.
Yes, I do agree.
Thank you.
Jolly good. This was confusing me enough. Right, we now go to members. We're going to give you 5 minutes each to speak, but I would propose that we don't have too many on.
Mr. Chairman,
otherwise,
can I make a point of order? Surely if the proposal of substantive, if motion is accepting, by seconding it, she's actually accepting the amendment, surely it then becomes part of the substantive motion without debate.
It still needs to be. Yes, that is the amendment, but the amendment would still need voting on at the end. And I think this is an opportunity if there's anyone that wants to speak on the amendment.
Does anybody wish to speak on the amendment? Let me put it like that. No? Well, that's jolly good. Now, if I've got this right, I'm going to call on Councillor Adams to second the substantial.
Do I get to speak at the, can I just clarify, does anyone else want to speak on the budget? Because I think that's before I get my right to reply. Okay, if that's the case.
Well, just hang on. Councillor Rouse would like to speak. You've got 5 minutes, Councillor Rouse.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the finance team for the fantastic work they've done with this budget. Assigning 750,000 for local government reorganisation is the wisest move. And I personally also really am glad that the £4,000 for each ward member is coming forward. So yeah, some great work on the budget and brilliant work, brilliant stuff by you all. Thank you.
Right. You know, we've now got a plethora of hands up. We really want to. We need
to speak.
We're speaking on the amendment. Really, just to clarify, Councillor Dixon. Right. Thank you. In that case, we're voting on the amendment.
Fitzpatrick has said the amendment's been accepted, so it's therefore part of the substantive proposal now.
I thought we need to vote that everyone is happy to agree to that amendment. That's what we're doing.
Jolly, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Right.
Well, then we do need a recorded vote.
Oh, it's going to be a recorded vote.
Councillor Adams,
4.
Councillor Beatty,
4.
Councillor Bayes,
4.
Councillor Birch, Councillor Blathwaite, Councillor Boyle,
4.
Councillor Brown,
4.
Councillor Taylor,
4.
Councillor Cushing,
4.
Councillor Dixon, 4. Councillor Fitzgerald,
4.
Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Fitzpatrick, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Graham, Councillor Hampkins, Councillor Hiding, Councillor Hiding,
4.
Councillor Holiday, Councillor Lee, 4. Councillor McDonald,
4.
Councillor Neville, 4. Councillor Patterson,
4.
Councillor Porter, Councillor Punchard, 4. Councillor Winger,
4.
Councillor
4.
4.
Jay,
4.
Councillor Chirico,
4.
Councillor Farley, and Councillor Gibbon.
4.
Right, by my reckoning that we're on page 2 of our having skipped about a bit. So we're debating the substantive motion. Members have 5 minutes each to speak. And I think we, in that case, will go to Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now that we are clear as to where we are within the debating web, I would like to make 3 points. The first point is perhaps a point of levity. I have to congratulate the Section 151 officer for leading the team to deliver a balanced budget. But not only has he done that, but he's also arranged for this substantial piece of business to be on page 151 of our agenda tonight. So well done for that. I'm not sure that it's ever happened before. My second point is to echo that which has been mentioned already in connection with the a word of caution really on the medium-term financial strategy and the risks that we have already talked about concerning LGR. And I won't dwell on that anymore, but I think that we do need to be very alive and cautious about how we look at that in the longer term future. And my last point really is how good it is to see a capital spend east of North Walsham. Even a modest spend of this nature, Stalham certainly deserves this investment, and hopefully it will lead to a more tangible investment at a later point. So they are the points that I wanted to make, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dixon. Anybody else wish to speak on the budget? Councillor Buttercoofer.
Thank you. I think it's lovely to see that actually we're all working tonight on the budget. It's great. So I just wanted to say, I know some members had asked questions about the Police and Crime Commissioner's budget in other discussions, and I just wanted to clarify as our representative on that panel. We were given North Norfolk being given less money. The Police and Crime Commissioner was also given substantially less money. She was given the second lowest amount in the country. So I think it just shows how we are treated in Norfolk. So we did ask, it was put to the Police and Crime Commissioner at the time about how the money from second homes was going to be used. That question has been asked many times, and it is going into supporting the police in Norfolk rather than the services that she has used it for in the past and had promised to use it for. And I think that is very disappointing. But we are where we are, as they say. And I just wanted to make one light-hearted comment, like my colleague Councillor Dixon. I think Councillor Bayes and Councillor Shires would be praised by ex-Councillor Grove Jones, were she here. She had quite a a passion for public conveniences, particularly in Stalham.
Thank you, councillor Badikova. Does anybody else wish to speak? No? Are we all happy? In that case, I go to the chairman of overview and scrutiny.
Thank you very much, Chair. The scrutiny committee reviewed the budget in some depth, I would say, and we resolved to support the following recommendations to full council. You'll find the numbers 1 to 6 on your budget sheet. That Cabinet consider the proposed balanced budget, including movement in reserves, and recommended approval to full council. To approve the use of the Communities Reserve to fund a revenue budget of £4,000 per member to allow the award of small local grants. To approve the creation of 750,000 earmarked reserve to mitigate the revenue costs of local government reorganisation. That an alternative option for balancing the budget should be agreed to replace costs or savings not taken forward, if there are any. That Cabinet says that Cabinet agree, I don't think that's meant to be council, but agree that any additional funding announced as part of the final local government settlement announcement be transferred to reserves. And that Cabinet, if that's correct, decide which proposed new capital bids should be recommended to full council for inclusion in the capital programme. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillor. If we're happy that we've all had our chance to speak, I will now go to councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think, as others have said, what we're seeing is rural councillors being punished who have often managed their budgets better in order to hold up failing councils and, frankly, northern metropolitan councils and, frankly, Labour held or marginal areas. But as Councillor Cushing, I think, rightly pointed out, that it's the rural economy that is being hit as well. And as Councillor Butikoff has pointed out, it's policing, despite commitments that have been made around, for instance, protecting women and girls, and that's been a particular item of correspondence you've all seen. Certainly, one of our biggest concerns now is undertaking newly introduced or mandated services. We've mentioned food waste earlier on, and I think this comes from a lack of understanding about costs of providing services in rural areas. And for instance, with food waste collections, due to there being more miles involved, more time on the road, and therefore more time in carrying out collections from every household compared to a more condensed urban borough. That's also reflected in the number of vehicles required and manpower. And I think it's also interesting, the proportion of council tax collected that is retained by the district council has reduced further year on year in the last few years. So if you recall, previously we used to say it was we only get 8p in every pound of council tax. Now that's 7p, and that's the reality of what's changing, and that's despite the fact we're providing weekly bin collections at a bare minimum to every resident. So if you were to look, for instance, at the district council element of your council tax bill and consider how much it might cost you to get a collection from a private provider to have your waste collected rather than it being collected by the district council, and then work out, for instance, if that provider, I won't mention any names, I could easily slip out of my mouth, if they would also be willing to provide you a planning service, an environmental health service, a coastal activity of all sorts of descriptions, property maintenance, and you actually realise, I think, that the value of smaller district authorities is really immense compared to significantly large authorities. And sorry to point the finger at the county council. of course, we all drive on roads that they maintain and have significant responsibilities in terms of social care, but it's a significantly larger proportion of money. And yeah, in terms of local government reorganisation, again, I mean, it sounds stupid for me to say this, but we've got to prepare for both the council to continue beyond 2028 and for it to cease to exist at the same time simultaneously. And it's obviously there's some discomforts there, but I'm glad that there's a recognition across the room that we've got to continue to prepare for that within our budget. Reflecting on a few of the points raised by Councillor Cushing earlier on, the external funding we have received from government and on the odd occasion other sources so often is reflective of our ambition, our capability and our needs, and we've often bid for that funding. And certainly that is relevant to Fakenham, which makes up the largest proportion currently of our capital budget, with the provision of the leisure centre and swimming pool, which we're very excited to achieve. It was a conversation that I'd had with the chief executive. I think it was about the first week I became leader. If there was ever an opportunity to secure this for Fakenham, we should try and secure it. And I think members across the room might remember my phone call when this opportunity arose. So I'm glad we've got to where we are now, and there's a rather large hole in the ground, which is fantastic. Not waiting for the weather to fill that. We are building swimming pool as well. In terms of Cromer and the points you've made there, often our capital programme is frankly a reflection of what's broken next or what's most broken. And I do apologise. Our previous authorities in Cromer did an awful lot to provide amenities, and this goes back to really the 1840s. With the coastal protection commissioners and everything they achieved, punching well above their weight for the size of the community. It was then, and clearly we've inherited that. Certainly the Sheringham Urban, I've got the name wrong of the shed, Erpingham Rural, it did a lot as well. But it's reflected very much of what we've inherited and the role those facilities continue to play in our economy. And as you pointed out, Cromer is providing most of the service charge revenue. And to maintain that, you've got to continue to maintain the assets that are driving that revenue, and it's certainly 5 million in 6 years. And yeah, again, that revenue is supporting provision of facilities in other communities as well. Across the district, that car park revenue, for instance, is helping us pay for facilities. For instance, the public toilets in Walsingham and other locations. I just wanted to say as well, I really welcome the amendment, now of course substantive, and of course we will want to realise other investment in Stalham as well, including the till recently quite infamous pond, which is now I think very delightful. We didn't, I think previously, no, we owned it, did we? I think that was the issue. So we're still finding assets that we've inherited from the previous authorities, indeed. And of course, hopefully in respect of some investment on children's play as well in due course. And we're really pleased with actually how Stalham's doing. We've got low shop front vacancy. I think even there's an application at the moment to reverse a previous change and make some residential accommodation retail provision again. And as we've heard previously, we've got 2 museums there, and it's rightfully, I think, taking its place as a wonderful community within the Broads. And so we obviously want to try and leave it and everywhere else in the best possible position, given the changes that we are seeing to local government. And that's reflected in this budget. We're continuing to try and secure these assets for the role they play in both the economy and the local community. So really welcome the dialogue that's been across the chamber this evening, but also leading up to it, as Councillor Shires, my deputy leader, has said before this in the open scrutiny committee and offline as well. A very collaborative approach, which is very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Shires, you have one last chance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, as we close this debate, I just want to take a minute to step back from the spreadsheets and the forecasts and reflect on what this budget truly does represent. It represents responsibility, yes, but it also represents belief. Belief in North Norfolk, belief in our communities, and belief in our ability together to navigate difficult times with confidence and purpose. This has not been an easy financial year. The pressures are real, the funding constraints are absolutely undeniable, and the landscape of local government continues to shift beneath our feet. But tonight we're not talking about cuts. We're not talking about crisis. We're talking about stability, investment and resilience. We have balanced the budget. We are continuing to invest over £10 million in our district. We are protecting essential services and we are planning responsibility for the future. That is something that this council should be proud of. This budget speaks for who we are. We are a rural district that refuses to be overlooked. We are a council that plans for the long term, just not the next headline. And we are an authority that understands that behind every single line of expenditure is a resident, a family, a business, or a community relying on us to get this right. The projects we've referenced tonight, from coastal protection to housing, from play areas to economic regeneration, are not abstract commitments. They are tangible improvements to the places people call home. In a time when public discourse can feel divided and uncertain, this chamber here tonight has shown something different: seriousness, collaboration, and a shared commitment to our residents. I want again to thank our officers and finance team for their professionalism and quiet determination. I want to thank cabinet colleagues for their discipline and support, and I want to thank every single member across this council for engaging in this process with the gravity it deserves. The challenges ahead remain, but so does our resolve. North Norfolk is strong. This council is stable and our direction is clear. We move forward not with complacency, but with confidence. Confident in our stewardship, confident in our communities, and confident in our future. Mr. Chairman, I once again commend this budget to the council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shires, and thank everybody for all the work that's gone into producing this budget. Now, we are voting on recommendations 1 to 8 here, and it is a recorded vote unless we need to vote on any of them separately. We're all happy to take these en bloc. 1 to 8 then, recorded vote, please.
Councillor Adams.
4.
Councillor Beatty.
4.
Councillor Bayes.
4.
Councillor Birch. Councillor Blathwaite.
4.
Councillor Boyle. 4. Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Buttercofer.
4.
Councillor Cushing.
4.
Councillor Dixon. Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Fitzpatrick. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Gray. Councillor Hankins. Councillor Heinink. Councillor Heinrich.
4.
Councillor Holiday. Councillor Leith. 4. Councillor MacDonald.
4.
Councillor Netherway. Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Porter. Councillor Punchard. Councillor Ringer.
4.
Councillor Rouse.
4.
Councillor Shires.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Toy J.
4.
Councillor Toy K. 4. Councillor Varley.
4.
Councillor Withington. 4.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Right, part 2, council tax setting recommendations, which is 9 and 10 on your agenda. Officer McCullum, if you could outline the elements of this council tax.
Apologies, Chair, I'm just finding my way through the pack. That's what we need to talk about, is it? To appendix A from page 283. No. The B2. That's what, we've gone too far, that's why.
We could have a bit of community singing, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah. Oh, 9 and 10, yeah. Apologies for the delay in navigating my way through the 302 pages. So in order to introduce this, the recommendation is that the members accept the calculations recommended and detailed in Appendix F for the council tax setting of 2026-27, and also taking it on block the collection fund for the same period as follows: 8,285,376 for district purposes, which reflects the recommended council tax increase of 2.96%, which is our closest equivalent of the 2.99 after taking into account rounding differences, which equates to £5.13 increase of the district element of a Band D property. There is also an additional provision of £4,318,242 for parish and town precincts.
Thank you, Officer McCallum. Councillor Shires, I believe you're proposing.
Absolutely. If members are unsure of where those figures are, they are in Appendix F of your papers, and the page 205 sets out the calculations there in case anybody is excited about the maths. But with that, I think I've spoken quite enough in the chamber this evening, and I will just propose.
I need a seconder. And Councillor Adams, does anybody wish to speak? He said not looking around too quickly. Right, we will go to the vote, again a recorded vote for item 9 and 10, and you'll see that 10 is split into two parts. So if you're all happy, we'll vote on those 9 and 10 in that way. So we're going to a recorded vote.
Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Beatty.
For.
Councillor Bayes. Councillor Birch.
For.
Councillor Blathwaite.
For.
Councillor Boyle.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Butikofer.
For.
Councillor Cushing. Councillor Dixon. Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Fitzpatrick. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Gray. Councillor Hankins. Councillor Heinink. Councillor Heinrich.
4.
Councillor Holiday. Councillor Leith. 4. Councillor MacDonald.
4.
Councillor Netherway. Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Porter. Councillor Punchard. Councillor Ringer.
4.
Councillor Rouse.
4.
Councillor Shires. 4. Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Toy J.
4.
Councillor Toy K. 4. Councillor Varley. Councillor Withington. 4.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, we'll take a deep breath and go on to item 14, portfolio reports. I believe Councillor Ringer would like to make a statement before we start.
Thank you very much. Just in addition to my portfolio, I wanted to give a food waste update. In March last year, this council voted to proceed with allocating funds for a fleet of vehicles to enable the rollout of domestic food waste collections, a service that will soon become a statutory responsibility for all local councils. Throughout this process, we've engaged constructively with DEFRA about the challenges we anticipated, but always with a clear commitment to deliver in accordance with this requirement. One of the risks we identified early on was a rush to market, with many authorities across the country placing fleet orders simultaneously. Our original timeframe would have seen us take delivery of vehicles in late summer, with a view to rolling out the service in the autumn. Unfortunately, but somewhat predictably, we have now been informed of delays to that delivery. We're not alone in that, and a number of our neighbouring authorities are facing similar delays. And as a result, implementation is now likely to move to the early part of 2027. This will allow us to avoid introducing a brand new universal service over the busy festive period. I will, of course, keep councillors updated as matters progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ringer. Now, I believe, Lauren, we've got a short video that Councillor Toy would like us to watch. Unfortunately, this does bite into our half an hour that we have. So
was requested by members from both sides of the House.
We have great belief in our towns. We like to understand our towns, but the people who really know it are the people that live there every day. We'd heard noise from our towns and we'd seen the data for where high streets were being challenged, and the County Council developed a High Streets Matter programme. We've developed a North Norfolk High Streets Matter within that framework.
Nothing like this has been done before in the UK. We've worked together as one unit with the same sense of purpose for our high streets and giving that sense of area to people within that community.
We all have a high street that either we grew up on or we live on or our parents worked on. The collaboration element was really simple because we all had a task together.
So this project has all been about collaboration. It's the Town Council, Norfolk County Council, the District Council, all the local businesses, and we've come together each step of the way to make it happen. It's going to transform the area.
It's so heartwarming to see this high street busy. Without the support of High Street Matters, we absolutely wouldn't have been able to do this.
Those shops are so vitally important to our community, so the council working with local businesses for the benefit of the town and its community. Expectations have been met 10 times over.
I think the project has been incredible for small businesses like me that can feel quite overlooked.
Using those resources to help the towns, we've helped them to deliver websites, activities, marketing campaigns, Christmas events, training. Just there's been a whole raft of things that we've been involved with, each tailored to each town or individual business that's engaged with us.
We wanted something that actually went in and supported our independent retailers and helped them as an individual business within our high street.
This programme has brought people together, not just a nice cuddle and a lot of help, but also significant funding with £2,000 to use for a specific project wherever they want. We had a cohort of just over 100 people, and we designed Retail Excellence to do a snapshot of basic information on finance, HR, pricing, buying, ops, but also we worked on a Town Ambition programme.
Launching as we speak. Experience Sheringham is to bring and engage the public into the town centres. That gives trade coming in off the high street. high streets really matter to North Norfolk, and it's the first time that Sheringham has ever had an event like this. Events like this really help to strengthen the high street and really give us a heart to the town because it pulls everyone together.
High Streets Matters really supported this event. Busy high streets always fill towns with energy, but a busy high street doesn't just mean that shops are thriving, it means that local communities are thriving, and when local communities are doing well, it means that everybody's aspirations are lifted.
So in Hull, we've got over 100 independent stores. It is a unique experience.
I applied for the TAP program, which is Town Ambitions program, and I got grant to buy a large kiln, a workshop table, equipments and materials like clay, glazes, brushes that we are going to use during the workshop.
Chapel Yard is adjacent to Albert Street car park, which actually has a huge amount of footfall in the town, but that footfall is not reflected in Chapel Yard at all. So we're really excited when we found the opportunity to apply for some grant funding to refurbish the area. The whole area is going to be transformed, not just by the resurfacing, but we've got some new signage coming, like I say, some planting, benches, and some online promotion as well.
It feels fantastic tonight. The amount of people that are walking through our high streets is heaving. Over 30 businesses opening tonight who have stayed open. I think it just brings everything together, businesses, community, organisations.
Fakenham is a great little town. We know that it's a vibrant town. It's a great destination to eat and to shop. It's full of small independents, but being able to apply to Love Your Market Town enabled us to be able to work on two quite big projects. The Saturday market, the food market. Saturdays are a quiet day in the town, so we want to encourage people to be inspired and interested and want to spend more time in the town.
Fakenham didn't have its own dedicated website for the town, for people to see what's going on. We really believe that in the short term and the long term that the website will see Fakenham thrive.
If I see a high street busy and full of life, there is just that feeling of a vibe. High Streets Matters has been a confidence boost to our high street retailers that they've actually felt the councils have noticed me, they actually appreciate me being here, and I am a valued part of that high street.
North Norfolk high streets have a whole individual vision for each place. That's what makes them special. They are community spaces in which business trades. It's a whole circular thing, and those towns that recognise it and work on it, we're delighted that we've been able to support them in shaping that future. Hopefully by lending our expertise and knowledge into local organisations and to get people established, that they will continue to grow in their own right. And I just want to thank people for coming forward, being positive and looking to what they can do, not what they can't do.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, but as we've heard tonight, it's about officers and everybody pulling together. Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, I am aware of the time and it's important that we get to the two motions that are. But firstly, I'd like to just thank our county colleagues for allowing me to use this video ahead of tomorrow's Market Town conference, which we've got on. I will be there and on the panel. I believe it's captured what we can achieve by good, positive collaboration, no matter where the funds come from. It's how we make best use of them. We've worked across private, public, individuals and organisations, and whilst working to a programme of delivery, have enabled very different and locally focused outcomes. I'd suggest that the council approach our collective work, including LGR, with this in mind, and that we remind ourselves of the opportunities that we can create by positive engagement that will bring the greatest benefits to our North Norfolk residents without it becoming homogenised and individual character lost in any reorganisation. We can work across organisations with one aim of delivering betterment for our local communities through a global view. It is the Market Town Conference tomorrow where I believe we can look back at what has been achieved and forward to an even better future, not just for our towns, but the villages that they are also the centre for. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Toy. We'll go hastily to questions. The members have questions for the portfolio holders, please. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Just a quickie. Councillor Ringer, what were the 59 cases of enviro crime in January and why the increase?
I don't actually think that is a long-term increase. You've only got 2 months there and one of them is December and there's the Christmas period. So I don't have a breakdown exactly of what those are, but I'm very happy to provide one in a written response. But those numbers don't stand out to me based on the long-term trends of anything out of the ordinary.
Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. A question for Councillor Boyle, if I may. Can you give more detail on the 48 homes proposed to be or already disposed of by Flagship this financial year? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. At the moment, we are in the process of arranging a meeting with Flagship to look at the homes that they have been disposing of. There's been some delay because Flagship have now, they're now with Broadland and one other firm which completed recently. So we are meeting hopefully in the next few weeks. The intention of Flagship, because I did question this, the intention of Flagship is that they would normally sell one property and make 2 new properties available. And that is the intention. Because of the difficulties we've had with nutrient neutrality within North Norfolk, the unfortunate thing is that some of those properties, the new properties that were built outside North Norfolk because they were able to build. So our residents haven't been able to benefit as much as they would have done otherwise. But this year, we're coming up with a much larger number of homes. I've forgotten an exact number, but we're heading much more into our expected amount of 100 homes. It's not as many as that. It's 80. I think it's 80 something, but I can give you the number of new stock we are getting. So it's not the ideal answer to our housing issue, but things are moving forward, and we will try and find out exactly where these homes are disappearing. And we do look at wherever possible to find ways of retaining the properties that are going up for sale, but sometimes they're not, because people have been in there so long, they aren't financially viable for us to purchase as temporary accommodation either. So it's quite a complicated situation, really. But thank you for your question. If you want any more, do come and speak to me and I shall let you know. But I'll inform you as we find out more from Flagship, certainly.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yes.
Chairman? Councillor Bob, there used to be monthly meetings, didn't there, with the Strategic Housing Department and the housing providers? I thought when we spoke a while ago, and have they lapsed? I'm just concerned because these disappear from villages and then they're replaced by houses, not North Norfolk, but not in those villages. So it's very important that we don't lose these houses. Really important.
Absolutely, and that is one of our priorities, and the officers do look into that very, very carefully. But at the same time, it's by their recommendation and their encouragement that we can build the new properties, but we don't own the housing association, so we can only have a say, and we do have regular meetings with them. But there has been a small hiatus. We are still very much involved with them, and there is a nice pipeline coming along. So it's quite exciting. I think you'll find over the next year or two, we will be seeing more. And obviously, we've got some coming on board down at Walcott and Bacton, which is absolutely brilliant. You know, it's all very exciting. There are hopefully some more rural exception sites. And if anyone knows of a nice piece of land that they're willing to offer us, we will build some more houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Bayes, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question's to Councillor Brown. I noticed in the planning report there was no mention of neighbour plans. I know that Stalham is one of those who submitted the plan some time back, and I do realise that the local plan was taken priority. What is the current situation? with the status of those neighbourhood plans?
Thank you, Councillor Bass, for your question. I think the short answer is that that the neighbourhood plans which are currently being lodged under the necessary process with the council are proceeding. They are at different stages. I can't tell you exactly which stage each neighbourhood plan is precisely at this moment in time. And neighbourhood planning, it has survived in the Planning and Infrastructure Act that came into being in December. There was some doubt at one point whether they would or not, but they have, and I'm delighted to say. But unfortunately, in the spending review, which the government announced just before Christmas, or in November, whenever it was now, funding, there was no provision for funding in that spending review from the government. Now, it's my understanding that those that were lodged before that spending review announcement will be able to continue because their funding was pledged before that announcement was made by the government in November. But I will certainly write to you within the next 7 days to let you know which stage each of our, it's either 4 or 5 neighbourhood plans currently that are live and in the system and have been validated, as it were. I'll let you know at which stage they are in each case.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is to Councillor Toy. Notwithstanding the positives in the video on market towns, all the recent national economic and employment indicators show little or no growth. And with the recent burdens of national insurance, minimum wage, and business rates increases on employers, as well as the end of the rural prosperity funding schemes, can the Economic Growth Cabinet member tell us whether the economy of North Norfolk is equally affected by this depressing performance? If it is, what steps have this council taken to support our rural economy? And if it isn't so adversely affected, what evidence is there to support that view, especially for the hospitality sector and youth unemployment? I'm not necessarily expecting a comprehensive answer tonight. You might want to give a short reply and a written reply to follow. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Councillor Dixon. Yeah, been busy out visiting pubs and hospitality. I've been engaging through the and staying sober, but also engaging through the Federation of Small Businesses to collect data. There is a mixed view out there. I'm aware of another pub that's closed this week locally. It's not just about the rates, it's about the increased cost for staffing. That's about the unequal playing field for VAT. So there is a whole range of things there. We continue to work. There have been businesses that have been in particular trouble here, and we work with our county colleagues who bring specialists in to assist us with looking at people's finances, arrangements, whether we can change how their businesses are structured, how they can move aboard. So that's kind of on a case-by-case basis. In general terms, yeah, I think our high streets are looking positive. You know, I'd like to think that's part of the work that we've done. And in terms of the major businesses, there's obviously some that have been in the news, but we've dealt with those, and I've not seen any indications that have come to me that it's difficult and it is challenging. The biggest challenge is actually getting them to employ people, to take on apprenticeships and to actually grow themselves. So there's a whole raft of things there. I think, I mean, I will happily try and write something, but I think you'll understand that it's a very complex thing that's very much on a case by case basis that we deal with it. But we are committed to working with our businesses through all the engagement that we do. We've got our annual business forum coming up where we'll have businesses there to engage with us. So I hope what I give is confidence that we are committed to try and address these issues as best we can with these businesses to find them solutions. And I hope after the Market Town Conference tomorrow, that with our county colleagues, that we can find things that we're going to support, particularly the pubs and hospitality industry. I'd like us to expand our Market Town offering into those areas. Hopefully that's enough for now, and then maybe we can discuss offline to see what more details you would like, and I'd be happy to try and help you with that.
Thank you, Councillor Toy. Councillor Netherway, I think.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question for Councillor Ringer. As someone who thoroughly looks forward to doing a little box fish test and actually managed to fail one the other day, it raises an interesting question. Could you please let me know what contingency plans are in place to continue to deliver services efficiently to the people of North Norfolk in the event of a serious cyber attack or another event that causes a total IT system meltdown?
Thank you for the question. I may have to defer to a IT colleague to provide a more detailed response, but we do have backup systems that operate out of Fakenham so that we have fallback servers over there. So we do have some contingency in place, but I think it would be better and probably more accurate if I get IT colleagues to draft a written response, if that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I did read the bit in there about Fakenham, and it does suggest that time may be an issue. We're having to go back to backups, but thank you very much. I look forward to the report.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? I see no will. Councillor Puncher.
Thank you. Question for Councillor Adams. I realise this may not be the venue for an appropriate response due to confidentiality, but not to sound like a broken record, but myself and Councillor Vickers would like an update from either Councillor Adams or senior officers with regards to 9 Norwich Street in Fakenham. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Punchard, but unfortunately those matters are confidential due to legal reasons and we are unable to disclose them. In this setting, it could harm the progress towards resolving those matters. So I'm afraid that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. As I said, I realise you may not be able to respond in this venue, but as a democratically elected member, myself and Councillor Vickers would like a response in private. Thank you.
I'm afraid that won't be possible because the member right to know only extends so far. As it stands, I've got portfolio responsibility for this matter. It's continuing to progress, but I'm afraid we cannot permit you to know the details of what is occurring at this time. Councillor Punchard, thank you anyway then.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, we'll go on to item 15, questions received from members, and there are none received. No opposition business. So we're on to notices of motion. You'll be very pleased to hear the corner there. And the motion against the proposed closure of Corpsley School is first. There is 30 minutes in total for both these motions. So I put that to you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've heard that pubs are closing. They're not the only premises that appear to be closing, thanks to the intervention of the Synergy Multi Academy Trust on the 13th of January. I just want to say briefly before I launch, a thank you to residents who have attended here tonight from Corpsley for their patience and bearing with us through a fairly arduous meeting if you're not sort of completely familiar with some of the terminology. So I thank them for that. I aim to keep my language temperate. I'm not going to imitate any language by or used by famous comedians, referred to by some senior politicians. You'll be pleased to know. The history of Corpus Christi School, it's existed since 1881. So it's survived world wars. It's survived depressions, economic headwinds, and so on and so forth. It will have had, at several stages in its history, declining numbers, but it has survived for nearly 120 years. It's taken Synergy Trust, I'll abbreviate it to save time to that, just 7 years since taking over in 2019 to preside over a period of what I can only call managed decline. And that's disappointing because they were introduced by the Blair government, multi-academy trusts, you know, the education government of the Labour government administration at that time. And it applied only to failing schools back in those days. It was expanded during the coalition to cover all schools, but obviously the ones that were failing in particular. It's a bit ironic that perhaps that message has been misunderstood by the trust because they've not managed this alleged failing school very competently, in my view. So the consultation, so-called, it was more a presentation back in January. This is what we're going to do, was circulated to those lucky enough to receive it. I wasn't on the list of consultees at the time, but I did get to know about it eventually as ward members you would expect. And it came to a village in my study ward, which is the largest by population, and has a neighbourhood plan, which has cropped up earlier in a different context. It was the first neighbourhood plan in North Norfolk, and I have an interest to declare because I was a part author of that neighbourhood plan. And it became evident at that time that in the village, the school was very central to the aims and objectives and survival of the community in Corpus Christi. And several plans were built around it, not least to build additional housing on an allocated site in the village, which has been delayed due to nutrient neutrality, but has come on stream. We gave it final permission last October, So without any details from the trust to create what they want to replace the school with, a special education needs and disability school, we just don't know what the future viability is going to be for this school at this stage. It's almost as though there's additional due diligence which is needed to get to the bottom of what this trust is playing at. I'm not going to mince my words when I say that. They have given the principal reason as falling pupil numbers. That's a misrepresentation. I'm really sorry. They are being slightly disingenuous. There are other factors about the way they have managed the school. I used to be a governor of it for 18 months between 2019 and 20 when the trust took over. Governance appears to be, in multi-academy trusts, obscure. It seems to be the information that you really need to understand it is just not readily available. And that is worrying for parents and non-parents in the village alike. If we accept, and it's a big if, I'm not proposing it for a minute, that the school is due to close, then the Hobson's choice that is being given to parents of pupils in the Corpus catchment area is to send their children to either Reefham or Gresham as an alternative. And rather than to a much nearer school in an adjacent catchment area trust at Astley. So the question arose, why haven't the catchment areas been revised and looked at in terms of, you know, how demographic changes occur with time? Nobody could provide an answer. The assistant executive, the chief executive, the executive head teacher of Corpus, along with their other 4 schools within the trust that executive head teacher manages, could not provide an answer. Astley Primary School does have capacity, used to be a high school. We know it has capacity because there's an allocated site through the local plan next to it, and that it's established that Astley Primary does have capacity to take pupils from that development. So we know long term it will have sufficient capacity. So we can't rely, I'm afraid, on our colleagues at the county council to do the necessary due diligence in this process. And whilst we are not responsible for education, as we all know, here at North Norfolk District Council, it does, I think, require us to participate, to investigate what is going on, to try and uncover what we should know, but what has been withheld, or what we don't know, you know, in this process. Corpus school, but not only the school, the village, the livelihood of the village, in terms of its vibrancy, in terms of its developing its aims and objectives under the neighbourhood plan in the future. Property values, to have a school is an attractive proposition to our social housing partner, Broadland Housing, to be able to market the 38 dwellings that they've now got permission to construct after 4 years of government interference and delay. So I put this motion to you tonight. I hope you will support it. It is essentially a request to our chief executive to formalise some questions to extract what we really need to know. And on that, I will conclude my remarks, Mr. Chairman. But I don't know if I'm allowed to reserve the right to come back. I don't think I am, am I, on a
I think we may
motion?
run out of time, councillor Brown, if I allow you. To
Really? I thought the night was yet young.
Councillor Ringer, you're seconding.
Yeah, can I reserve my right in case anybody else wants to contribute first?
You can indeed reserve your right. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this matter? On the motion? Yes, councillor Shiers.
I am a parent to a now 18-year-old, bless his heart, who did go to a small rural school, and who is now in post-16 education provision. So it's not particular interest, but from a parental perspective, we can't put barriers in place for our young people to attend education. It's hard enough for rural families as it is. So anything that we can do to break down those barriers, I wholeheartedly support. Village schools are incredibly special, not only to the young people that attend and the families, but to the people that live around them and see the vibrancy of life in village schools. So yeah, we should be challenging any decision to closing education provision for North Norfolk's young people.
Thank you, councillor Shires. Councillor Toy, did I say your? Yeah. Ah. Yes, councillor Boyle.
Thank you. I'll make this brief, but to me, my concern is closing schools where you're then expanding villages. We sit here as a district council with our local plan, making all these wonderful decisions about where we're going to make small growth towns. And then out of our control, we lose schools, and suddenly there's a big hole in our plan. And I think there does need to be a holistic approach here. And I am very concerned.
Thank you, councillor Boyle. Do I have anybody else wishing to speak? If not, I'll go to councillor Ring.
Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to second this motion representing the adjacent ward. Corpusy Primary School is not simply a place of education, and it has stood at the centre of village life since 1881. Generations of local families have passed through its doors, including my own grandfather. When you close a rural school, you don't simply redistribute pupils as some kind of desktop spreadsheet exercise. You remove a daily gathering point for families. You change the long-established rhythm of daily village life, perhaps the daily visit to the village shop. You change how, perhaps whether, families choose to settle in a place at all. Closure should be the absolute last resort, as Councillor Brown has alluded. One could draw a conclusion that this perhaps was the intended destination. If falling numbers are cited as the central rationale, then we must ask whether every reasonable alternative has been genuinely explored. Catchment boundaries are not fixed. Modest, thoughtful adjustments can sustain viability in one setting while relieving pressure in another. We know, for example, that schools such as Holt are under a significant strain and long overdue a rebuild. A more strategic approach to local intake could help balance the system. There is little evidence to suggest that this has been meaningfully explored. Has there been meaningful engagement with this council by the Trust about projected housing growth in the village? Has the Trust stood before us to say that more needs to be done through planning policy to secure the school's future? To my knowledge, those conversations have not happened. Corpusty and Saxthorpe Neighbourhood Plan was adopted to shape sustainable growth. 38 new homes are coming forward. This isn't theoretical, this is imminent. And plans like these are designed precisely to support communities to grow in a way that sustains local infrastructure, including schools. To make a short-term decision now before those homes are delivered and their impact felt risks undermining the very framework this community has put in place to protect its future. The Synergy Trust says that these houses will not deliver the pupil numbers to guarantee viability. But to the best of my knowledge, they took no part in shaping that local plan or the subsequent planning application for 38 homes, which you might reasonably expect them to have done if they really wanted to save Corpusty Primary. Above all, since this motion was first published in the agenda, it's now been confirmed that Norfolk County Council elections will take place in May, and that further strengthens the case for pausing this process entirely. The strategic planning of primary education in Norfolk sits fundamentally with the County Council, and it's only right that a newly elected authority with a fresh democratic mandate has the opportunity to scrutinise, challenge and help shape decisions of this magnitude. A pause is about ensuring a significant and potentially irreversible decision is considered by those who have been newly entrusted by residents to make it. For a school that has served this village for nearly 145 years, allowing time for new housing to come forward, for proper engagement to take place, and for a newly elected county council to consider the matter is not unreasonable. I second this motion. We should do all we can to protect this school and all our rural schools because they matter profoundly to the communities that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Ring. Councillor Brown, I can give you 45 seconds.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I completely agree with Councillor Ringer's comments. You know, this is it's not just a school, a place of learning. It is a fundamental part of the fabric of the village and of the wider area. We get pupils travelling from outside the catchment area to go to the school, and it's not that long ago that numbers were in the hundreds, the low hundreds. and we've now dropped to into the 30s and 40s. There's got to be a better explanation for that than simply population or demographic change, and we need to get to the bottom of what's happening here, because I don't think we're being told the whole story.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. I think we need to go to the vote, and we've had a proposer and a seconder, and we can just go for a show of hands, those in favour of this motion. That's unanimous. Now we can go to
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Go to the second motion, Councillor Withington.
I think actually some of the issues that I'm going to be talking about can be also replicated with what you've heard about Corpus Dei. But tonight I'm proposing this motion because this decision is about far more than just the internal management of a school. You heard earlier from Julia and Alex, who I thank very much for coming, when they talked about how the vocational education and the A-level combination that was provided by Sheringham High School was such a successful and important part. And the cessation of A-levels is of quite considerable concern. So this is about inequality, aspiration, economic sustainability, and the coastal future for North Norfolk. Sheringham, much of our district are classified as rural and coastal communities, and they face structural disadvantage. According to the Index of Multiple Deprivation, parts of North Norfolk's coastal wards fall within the most deprived 30% nationally. Average wages in North Norfolk are around 10 to 15% below national average. We have higher than average seasonal employment, limited public transport connectivity, and clear evidence of transport poverty. So when you remove sixth form provision from a town like Sheringham through the provision of A-levels, you are not creating choice, you are creating barriers. Students will face longer travel times, often up to now it would be 60 to 90 minutes each by way of public transport to Norwich or North Walsham, or maybe even further depending on what you wish to study. That's up to a minimum of 15 hours travelling a week. The annual cost of post-16 transport in Norfolk can run into many hundreds of pounds per family, over £1,000 per year. For low-income households, that is not incidental, it's prohibitive. And it reflects also the need for subsidised travel for young people in North Norfolk, which I know is a concern at county. So with 23 to 25% of households in the low income bracket in Sheringham and 26% in North Norfolk, because people attend Sheringham from a wide area, particularly towards the west, Blakeney, etc. We have 26% in North Norfolk living in relative poverty. This closure is going to have a disproportionate impact on low-income families and their future life chances. Future bus services provided free to Reefham by Synergy do not appear to be long-term. And if we don't have sufficient numbers of students who take up that offer to go to Reefham, could be potentially unsustainable given numbers who may wish to attend the designated school that Synergy have chosen for them. So we know the consequences of barriers to learning. Norfolk's 16 to 17 NEET rate has consistently hovered above the national average in recent years, around 5 to 6%. This will only serve to make this worse. In rural and coastal pockets, risk is higher, with increased travel distance, cost and disruption. These are the well-established predictors of disengagement from post-16 education. So if this closure proceeds, it's highly likely to increase NEET levels locally, reduce aspiration, which Julia talked about as being so important among young people who already face disadvantage simply because of where they live. There are also serious economic implications. Education isn't just to serve it, It underpins our labour market. Sheringham has a growing creative and cultural economy, as does North Norfolk. Yet Synergy Multi-Academy Trust has significantly reduced creative arts subjects. In a town where the creative sector is part of our identity and economic opportunity, narrowing the curriculum diminishes both progression routes and the attractiveness of sixth form to students beyond Sheringham. The loss of A-level teaching in a sixth form will also lead to a reduction in specialist teachers across the high school. Increased part-time posts teaching in subject areas which are not their specialism, impacts on career progression and professional development opportunities will disappear. This then has an impact on the level of experienced and subject specialist teachers and increases staff turnover. So from a business perspective, reducing your offer at school to the point that your market shrinks and then closing aspects of your curriculum because numbers fall, it isn't strategic management, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes, there are falling birth rates, but if we withdraw infrastructure every time demographics fluctuate, as Councillor Brown referred to in Corbusty, we risk turning towns like Sheringham into places solely for retirement and holiday homes. That deepens further inequality, weakens our workforce and hollows out our communities. It is the greatest weakness of the academy system and particularly multi-academy trusts. The Education White Paper, currently progressing through Parliament, is clear in direction. Greater accountability for academy trusts, stronger alignment with local authorities, and recognition that education must serve community need. This national shift recognises that education cannot operate in isolation from place. Therefore, we ask a simple but fundamental question. Can Norfolk County Council and the Department for Education confidently state that this cessation of A-levels and this closure of this part of the sixth form will not harm life chances, increase equality or damage economic sustainability in North Norfolk? If they cannot provide that assurance with evidence, then they must intervene and we must support NNDC in asking for that intervention. Education is a fundamental right. It is the engine of aspiration, health, prosperity, and social mobility. This motion is about standing up for coastal fairness, rural opportunity, and the future of Sheringham and North Norfolk. That seems to be a topic of the evening, actually, rural inequality. Chair, I therefore propose this motion to Council and I urge Council to support it. And if you can't find it, it's on page 288.
Thank you, Councillor Withington. Councillor Ringer, do you reserve your right to speak?
I shall reserve my right in case anyone else wants to contribute.
Can I ask if there are any members who wish to speak to this, Councillor Heining?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can only echo what Councillor Withington and Julia and Alex Drury have said so eloquently about opportunity and inequality. Speaking as a teacher and parent in Sheringham, it's difficult to exaggerate what a disaster closing the sixth form provision would be for families in the town and beyond. When my children are older, I would dearly love them to become learning machines, as Julia said earlier, and I would dearly love them to do it close to their home. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Heining. Councillor Netherway.
Thank you, Chair. I too would like to echo the comments of my fellow councillors. In simplistic language, I don't think economy of scale should justify policy. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Netherway. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. As the representative for a ward that's severely affected by this and seeing the effect it will have on children's life chances, I'm very much in favour. I mean, again, quite simplistically, you know, if you don't have a decent sixth form education, you won't make your way in the world as well as you would. And it's you know, and you want to reduce barriers rather than raise them. So I'm very much in favour of this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
I have to declare an interest, not a sort of personal interest, but my granddaughter actually attends Sheringham High School. So with one stroke of a pen, you are actually destroying any possibility of her moving up and improving and getting the sort of qualification she will need in the future. She's currently in year 9, so instead of having 3-4 years to go, she's only going to have 2. And I find that totally distressing. As a former teacher myself, I think it's appalling.
Thank you, councillor Fitzgerald. Is anybody else wish? Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. Yeah, actually, as someone who's worked at the high school as a technology technician, I think it's important that we get to the data behind this, that they've not been providing, that there's been this self-fulfilling prophecy. It's about providing the right courses in the right place, understanding place, and that actually it's not been driven by some other mechanism. And so I fully support that we actually go away and find out the realities behind this, because yeah, I mean, also my son went there as well. So there's a lot of us related to that, but we have to take the emotion out of that. And I think it's absolutely right that we ask these questions and then we challenge that the right decisions have been made. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, councillor Toy. Nobody else, councillor Ring.
Thank you very much. In a rural coastal district like North Norfolk, access to post-16 education is not an optional extra. It is essential infrastructure. Where a young person lives in this district already shapes what is realistically accessible to them. And when we remove local A-level provision from Sheringham, that geographic disadvantage becomes even more entrenched. This obviously does not neatly sit as a Sheringham issue on its own. It impacts, its impact ripples out towards the entire high school catchment and beyond, into villages that I represent, into transport networks, into family finances, and into the long-term prospects of young people across rural North Norfolk. In many of our communities, public transport is sparse and infrequent, if it exists at all. It does not align with the timetable of Sheringham sixth form student or that of any other post-16 education establishment. The existing school transport network into Sheringham High has provided not just access for years 7 to 11, but a natural and practical route into post-16 education. Remove A-levels for many young people. You are not just adjusting the curriculum balance, you're removing their practical route to academic progression altogether. Unless parents can afford daily taxis or have the flexibility to drive significant distances twice a day, 5 days a week, the academic pathway becomes a lot harder to access. And we must be honest about what that means. It means that access to A-level becomes dependent not on ability or aspiration, but on family circumstance, finance, or just your postcode. Vocational education is, absolutely has value, and it deserves parity, but narrowing the academic offer, apparently in anticipation of a government white paper, the contents of which are not yet known, raises serious questions. Is it prudent to restructure provision based on reforms that have not been published, legislated for, funded? Academic and vocational studies can and should coexist, as Julia rightly said when she spoke to us earlier. So this motion doesn't seek to dictate curriculum design, it just asks for transparency. It asks for a full assessment and some accountability. It asks for a full equality impact assessment. It asks for a rural and coastal access review. It asks for analysis of implications for participation, NEET levels, inequality. It asks how this aligns with forthcoming legislative reform of multi-academy trust accountability, because at the moment, an academy trust can entirely remove this provision without requiring any consultation at all. So these aren't unreasonable requests. They're the minimum that communities should expect when decisions of this magnitude are made. North Norfolk already faces inequality, coastal and rural deprivation, lower than average wages, seasonal employment patterns, transport limitations. And if participation in post-16 education declines as a result of this decision, that will not be an abstract statistic. It will be young people's horizons narrowing. On Monday, Councillor Withington and I met with Julia, the original director of the sixth form, when the centre was established 30 years ago, and she spoke proudly of the sixth form that spent time telling us about the outcomes of individual students that she taught over the time and the opportunities that the local sixth form had afforded them. And it was a game changer locally. And sadly, for the wrong reasons, the proposal to remove A-level provision could undo 3 decades of good work. Alex spoke about his friends who went to Sheringham sixth form and their contributions to the community, and I've got a similar list. Police officers, accountants, officers at this council, etc., etc. The list goes on. I'll just conclude with one story. I met today a family whose son's in year 7 at Sheringham. They do not know how he will access post-16 academic education under these proposals. Transport from the village is limited. They're already discussing whether they need to move in the future, not because they want to leave their community, because they're unsure whether being a young person seeking academic progression is compatible with living in our villages. That's not an exaggeration, that's a lived reality. And for those reasons, I fully support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ian. I can give you the same 47 seconds that I gave you, Councillor Brown. Thank you very much. I think we've gone over the time and it's much a respected debate. So can we now go to a show of hands, please, those for the motion? And again, that is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed for your time on that. Right, questions from members? There's none received. Opposition business, none received. Exclusion of press and public, private